Hello everyone. Today's talk is one of the nicest talks, and I've been waiting a while for this, And it's a very, very inspiring talk because it is the one where I will be talking about my understanding of the Purelands. And so I'm going to tell you where that word even came from and what it really means to me. I mean, why do I just even know that word? Well, in an indirect manner, it's as if like if you looked at my life when I was younger, you would be like I would be distant from, for example, let's say stuff like meditation or like that. It wasn't close to my reality. It wasn't stuff like that I understood in the manner that it was communicated, for example, as meditation, right? But, I always had an understanding of life. So, there was this concept of the Purelands, which there was a time I just got a piece of paper and I had this brush I had bought from Chinatown or somewhere, right? And this brush was a calligraphy brush for those Chinese paintings they do, those black paintings. And so I just had a white paper and I would randomly just do my own version of those writings, right? And so once it's late at night and everyone's asleep and I'm just in the house living room and I just have all these pages right in front of me, these blank pages, and I'm suddenly just going into this moment where it's as if it's as if like this warm, my experience becomes very warm, and so it's like there is no thought, but it's like a very more vivid state of mind, and so I'm just in a very empty but full way drawing whatever that I'm drawing in that moment. So I'm drawing these lines, and in one picture I draw this one line that suddenly, it's very crazy, but it makes me intensely emotional for no reason. It's like I finished doing this one calligraphy that is just meaningless lines to me, right? But as I do it, suddenly it's as if this concept of immense bliss and joy comes. It's as if I became emotional because it was like a sudden wave of just bliss and joy, right? A bliss and joy as if like I had recognized something that I knew, but this aspect of my conscious self didn't know, right? It's like another part of me was aware of it, but just my direct conscious part wasn't. So it's like it was shock for the sense of me in this lifetime, but in another sense of holistic view, it was just me remembering something. So our remembrance and sometimes the collective being made aware of through the individual's eyes. Now, in that moment, the word Purelands comes in my mind, and I've just heard it. The word Pureland, it's like I saw it in some documentary, but it wasn't like that meaningful. But in that moment, suddenly the word Purelands came in, and so that even the concept of like, oh, pure, and so like it even intensified my emotions. But still, I was there, and I just wondered, and I'm like, what is the Pureland? And I realized it's as if it's a certain aspect of my knowing that knows itself regardless. It's as if like if you are hugging yourself in some way that you cannot see, you being aware of that love you have for yourself as a being. It's like the greatest love that you could expect someone else showing it to you. Suddenly you see you in a very transparent way have been giving yourself the potential of it, have always been giving yourself that possibility, And so the Purelands became more than just a brushstroke for me. It became a moment of experience in where I understood the experiencer became aware of its dimensions. So there are some lessons, for example, which are for the objects of experience, which is simply where I'm speaking now. There are some other lessons in which the teacher is no longer a communicator of words. So you see, I'm using, for example, words to communicate here. But if there was a lesson which I was to give the experiencers directly, it would be a performance. It's as if like the next great teachings in regards to existence are just performances of multidimensional, let's say, hue. It's as if like the lights of the star, for example, are all just realities in which you as a being in this presence of different lights are just receiving. It's as if like many different presences and aspects of existence are observing you, and so it's as if like as one big aspect of existence is observing the small, there's only one sense of existence. And so this is a realm where it's real to you because you have explored your thoughts. So do not go into these concepts, do not think too deeply unless it is natural. It's like a part of you that wants to know. It's a treasure revealer aspect of you that cannot be flawed. What that means is like that, for example, that moment where you go to that restaurant and they're like, we're closed, and you're like, no, you're not, because I'm still here, you know? Because you just go there and you have the intensity of saying like, I want a meal, and you will see that the communication will go through. And what that means is that regardless if the guy was about to close, you can still get a meal from that restaurant late at night, you know? And I'm pretty sure many students have that experience. It's very crucial to see that understanding is significant to different terminals differently, because those terminals are considering themselves separate. So that if we were to observe the human psychology, so that you see many people think the greatest lessons are in books. No, let's say you go to a park and you just see two human beings talking. If you become aware of it, you will see such a beautiful moment, because you're seeing two unknown elements are trying to figure each other out. It's like that moment where that guy asked that girl, for example, and was trying to talk to her, you know. Suddenly he realized that there is nothing he can know about that person, and there's nothing that that person can know about that person, unless there is that acceptance that there is something there that's real for both. You are an observant being, a compassionate being. You will see that you will access a greater sense of viewing your life. That's it. It's not magical powers, it's nothing. It's just that you are just more aware and sensitive to form, to existence, and to shape. So as you're aware of this, it's like there's more of an allowance for you to be who you are. And so that being who you are is your sense of expansion. It's a sense of transcendental growth. Now, as two people speak, it's as if worlds has opened. In the fact that we think that people are strangers, but no, it's as if one galaxy is about to meet another galaxy. And so that intensity and vastness of human beings communicating with one another is huge. It's as if you are recognizing the value of life more than your immediate dualities. And when you do that as a being, you transcend. You no longer see anything that is coming to your life, coming towards you, as something that is against you. That was a flaw. That was something that I wish I could have taught myself earlier. To see that no, life is not supposed to be seen in a way where it is against you, where you think that everything is opposing you. That is a choice in seeing that way. Actually, a very wise sage, an ancient mystic, I saw a video of his, and he was saying, be aware of these two ways, because if you're aware that you can also live with all life guiding you, because you're aware of life, it's as if you love life, so you're listening to it. You will be moved to where you need to be. You will see that that natural flow of spontaneous movement is much better of a life in regards to your experience than one that's just sitting around and just it's not allowing itself what it really needs, or in a sense what it really is. What that means is that if you call yourself shy, it'll be really hard for you to see yourself giving a speech. If you called yourself stupid, which many people subconsciously are associating, because the imagery is out there. You know, it's like that guy you can't ignore in the room. You know, it's as if you're seeing that ideology does not need to be judged. So why is there someone that's stupid? I don't know how you decided your next decision, for example, because I don't have your totality of your eyes. And I will never have that intensity of view. But if I say, oh, I have it, you know, it's as if like even the smart person was found to be stupid when he really realized he hadn't figured it out. When you realize you don't figure it out, everyone's the fool. That person who thinks he knows more science than you is actually not confronting the fact that he doesn't know anything in this infinitely expansive universe. To say that you know something in this emptiness requires balls. Requires a sense of like, I'm seeing that everything is in a void, but I'm this, so deal with it. Do you know what I mean? It's a very, very hilarious divine comedy in where it seems that hell was always covered with imagery that had come into man's mind. Your ability to be a transcendental view, let's say, existential view and existential awareness, means that you are given the ability to intensify any image. So that if I give you an apple, you are free to do whatever you want with it. Similar to how just the fact that you're aware of things is reality. The Purelands was for me a moment where I was never present in anywhere to even be in an illusion. It was a knowing that the land that was pure was my awareness to all that I am by, in a sense, observing beyond all that I'm seeing. You don't understand, but as consciousness, this imagery is being kept significant through many different layers of information. So you will see that you're a program that is based on the cyclical movements of other programs. And so as you are this program within a program, it's very hard to see the programmer because you're thinking that you're this minute aspect. It's as if we do not have the same understanding as the ant. So that if we think the ant is a lost being, that is wrong. Because in every platform of creation, there is given an allowance for a moment to be a moment, and in that moment, there's no story or mind that could be kept there. So many people think, for example, they have past lives. To be honest, sometimes their past lives are not even your lives. Sometimes the past, the idea you have of a past, is based on a sense of self given to you here that's not really you. What that means is that if you your whole life have been thinking that you've been wearing a hat, you've actually never been wearing a hat. That's what I'm saying. You haven't. All these judgments, all these things, all these terrible things you think you have done is simply how you are shaping yourself for yourself, and it's an inefficient one because it's making you incapable. Do you know? Good men must be allowed in platforms of ability. So what that means is there are kind hearts who are finding it hard to handle physical reality, finding it a bit harsh to go into this challenge. And I'm going to tell you, I looked at it too. There was a point where I thought, do I want to go into my internal experience or do I want to remain in my external experience? And I noticed that the fact that I had a preference to not be in a certain condition was a condition on its own. And so you will really see that there's nothing wrong with where you are. And so after galaxies have been observed in an instant, we will find the meaning in that quote where they said, what does a sage do before enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. What does a sage do after enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. You will see that once you're aware, you have a self-awareness to your existence, you realize this reality is a game. Because that is how your limited reception can receive it. Unless your limited reception, it's as if the projector is turned off. You're like, okay, forget the projector, forget the program, let's see what cannot be programmed. And so in that awareness, you are confronting yourself. And so the self of selves is in a sense being found, in the sense that you're like, okay, I wasn't this person then. Oh, because it's as if like the sense of cognition and how neurons move like armies with great command in your mind. You will see that you are able even when you're nothing. And so you are always in the Pure Lands. And that was what was very beautiful of that. Because some of the greatest stories that have entered man's ears have been ones where they have told man of an aspect of himself where he didn't know. And so this is why treasure revealers will be cherished by humankind always. Because these are people who are willing and are not sacrificing, but are taking the time to intensify into an experience, to be that aspect of the story that humanity needs to confront, to then move beyond it. What that means is that perhaps all the great leaders of man in their speeches have known that there's an aspect of the physical plane that's lost to itself. In other words, the world's going to change beyond how I'm thinking. 10,000 years from now, I'm not perhaps here. Where could we be? Well, hopefully it'll be a new glow. Now, you will see that as a human being, you're never a perfect communicator. What that means is that simply just the fact that I'm born as a human being, I'm present as a human being, means that I can judge the human being right and wrong in an infinite spectrum. What that means is that they told you the concept of guilt, but they forgot to tell you you're a creator in in an infinite sense of being aware of dimension. So what that means is like, they tell you your sins, but they also don't tell you that you're choosing the intensity. What that means is that for a long time, I thought that I was my thoughts. I literally thought there was nothing else. I thought it was just a thought thinking a thought, right? And this thought was just kept by this biological system, as if the projector was kept on by something I didn't understand. But then I realized that existence, what is keeping existence? In other words, we have so keenly dived into trying to understand how these physical bodies work. What is the body of the moment? How can the body of the moment be studied? And you see, the body of the moment is beyond terminology. It is beyond also ideology. It is beyond the structure, because there's always the unstructured. Sometimes creation could be that step you never took. And when that comes, you have an awareness that you are not just that step, but you're all the steps that are required. It's like that moment where you climb the mountain and you see you could have always climbed it from any other way and it would have been fine. You see, how you receive reality is your business, but how you communicate around others requires to be a compassionate, efficient, and a caring one. And you must not just care for people, you must care for every shape, form, and just anything that is present in your reality. Because you are beginning to acknowledge yourself as the ability that is the moment of man. Because man is stages now. Man is right now, the time for him is he exists. It's as if existence has just brought forth this idea for a limited time to be aware of itself. And so now man, all that he can do in this infinite universe is dance. You can dance with all ideology. You can dance with all imagery. You can dance with all conceptualization. You can dance with all visualization. You can know all to be still. And so even through the purest sense of being, you continue to land. And so the pilot arrives there by never having been there. The pilot of consciousness knows that in an instant he can let go of himself. And when he says let go, it simply means that you are so comfortable being life, just as life, that you can live without ideology for the rest of your life, without any need for such things. But you will also gain a greater ability of how to use them. What that means is that I thought before I was a person I could talk. When I look back now, I was like, there was definitely some aspects, there were some blind spots that I wasn't seeing. So when you suddenly see your blind spots, you see that your potential was always there, and you have a potential of being a moment of life, a moment of existence that will blow your mind. And I hope this talk has really shown you that pure lands require you into remembering your pure feet, and your pure feet were always here. There is no guilty man. There never was any guilty man. There was simply a man who chose to look at guilt within himself. You will see that it's very important you learn that people from outside of your life, outside of your reality, will communicate to you. You will suddenly be given not one origin story, but infinite origin stories, and you'll see, oh gosh, even the bench is giving me an origin story. What if life was just someone God chose to sit on a bench? Everything will go into that modality because your thoughts are in a sense connected, similar to how drops have come to be a river of awareness. And you will find that there's no container to contain your enormity. It is very important for an honest communicator to tell you that there is honestly some things that I can never tell you because you gotta only go figure it out for yourself. It's just one of those things where you gotta look within. You gotta go find Mr.Within. But also there's some things I can tell you in how we can efficiently contribute. So in a sense, there is no such thing as a problem solver. You're just a moment of being. There's no such thing as a human being. There is actually a moment of awareness that through its expression is problem solving to the mind of man. So like the human psychology doesn't need that many ideas to work. You don't need that many ideas to actually have them in your proximity. So like, let's say if someone is stressed or depressed, they're a person who has gone and let's say taken suddenly like 40 books from the library, you know, just 40 random books on a topic, and the librarian's like, son, you can't read this possibly in a week, you know. And so let's say one person has taken like that. Now you will see that person will create stress. He will have many assumptions on who he has to be to so many people that it's as if like, trust me, if you were in a room with 8 billion people, each person would give you a new view of who you are, because they would communicate to you as if you're somebody you've never seen. And simply that's the experience of man's novelty. That's what a new experience is. So, in how accurately we observe ourselves, that accuracy no longer becomes something that's dependent on imagery. So, it's only on the basis that what we see is accurate that reality feels, okay, that's good, that's a green light. But if our basis is that our sensory apparatus is not complete, then we are simply ignorance if we choose to think that we're complete in such an infinite realm. In such a multi-dimensional context, thinking that we're only in a few dimensions. That's ridiculous. It's actually that's the only ability of conception we have. That's how much man has had an ability to acknowledge his reality, and so science has brought it to 4 dimensions. But you will see multidimensionality is actually how you are dissolving into a simultaneous sense of intelligence, as playfully as I can say, as Mr.Within can say. You will simply see that it's as if the next dimensions are how you take the story of all that you have seen and how you're absorbing into that. So it's like one aspect of the experience is like, all right, someone's putting the meal in front of you, and another aspect of your experience is eating from the meal. So many people are not eating. It's as if they've been given life, but they're not experiencing it, engaging it, and really moving through it. It's as if like there are rivers of inspiration everywhere. Just begin walking and you will see something and you'll be like, gosh, you know, I must walk on mountains. You know, you know, as far as the peak of the highest mountain, you know, to communicate. And so you allow yourself to be nothing so that you can clearly see what is there and what you are. So it's like that moment where the thinker stops to exist, ceases to exist, because you have just become aware of yourself through more than just an idea. It's as if Mr. Within has been seen walking in the forest, you know. And so you're realizing the fact that the aspect of what is you is an unknown exploration that requires your involvement. That's life. That's it. You're here to, from one platform of knowing, move towards an unknown, to then come to another platform of knowing. Age, time, and space, you will see in your awareness of your internal dimensions, will cease to exist. It's as if one part of you, it's like imagine I'm between a doorway and half my body is in this room where everything is of an instant experience, and on the other half of my body is in a room where everything is with a delay. It's a cause and effect, right? So it is only the experiencer that shares the great wisdom of the reunion. You will see that it is you who is the missing link. And if man cannot find it possible for him to make consciousness into a formula, his formulas will always be incomplete. And he will never be able to. Because when we write down things, we are shaping it. We are making it lesser. We are caging it to then making it meaningful. And it's like, as I don't remember the name of this quantum physicist, but he was talking about reality and how the exploration of sciences, and it's as if like, you know, in one way you can observe life, you know, in the scientific approach, in the sense that you take a jaguar, let's say a very exotic animal, and put it in a cage and then observe its movement, right? I mean, you've put it in a cage, you've put it in the limitation of your arrogant measurement to then see what it means. But now there's also an observance of the jaguar in nature when it's running after a gazelle or something, let's say, and you see the intensity and the focus. It's as if that jaguar was the greatest teacher of concentration ever, you know, and the gazelle was the greatest teacher of a runner, you know. That you can run, but eventually life will happen as it is. Therefore, there's a difference. It's as if in that ideology we saw that there's an aspect in science where it's as if science is like, all right, we're all calling this science. We're calling this the laws of the universe. Now, let's see what else we can do. It's as if that person who everybody was ready to leave, and suddenly that person was like, everybody calm down, calm down. Who's ready to leave? But everybody's there waiting, all right, buddy, let's go, let's leave, you know? So it's as if the science needs to realize the value of direct experience, in the sense that consciousness is no longer lost in a world where there is illusion, where there is solidity. Because solidity is choice, and all men are inspired by the idea of free will. What that means is that you do not just want to be, it's as if man went through this evolution of first being a slave to form. So it's as if it grew up and it became self-aware, and after it became able to communicate, then there were different men and there was rivalry, and so we went through a whole phase of like, gosh, men are equal, and some beings had to come down and they're like, gosh, you guys are equal, stop fighting, kids, like literally to a kindergarten class, you know, because that was the maturity of man. And now man has gone into a point where he's actually reaching he's maturing beyond his illusion, but it's also like coming out of that adolescent phase where it's as if like there is a journey but you haven't gone through it. It's as if now people are realizing who they are, so they are grounding themselves much more clearly in their existence, in their knowing of all that is. Your clarity is truly your guidance. Do not seek prophecies too much, because you cannot even realize how the prophecy was given. So what that means is that many seers who spoke, they knew that in your interpretation of what their speech was, there were parts of it you would never understand. So don't try to understand something and try to have a certainty. That's a bit arrogant. In this limitless world, you're like, you want to have the certainty of just a cloud, you know? In this limitless sky, you're just like, oh no, the cloud is only real. No. The vastness of all that is real. Your whole thing, the whole view is real. And so when people become aware of the whole view existentially, it's as if life is telling them, all right, relax with the ideas a bit. Now go and experience some gentler aspects. Go see how you exist without just being this person who knows how to communicate an idea. And this is where teachers of the silence become rare and become helpful, because they are those people who know that nature is never late, and so the students will arrive at the right time, similar to how the guru is presented. And so many people think that you can have a guru. There's no such thing. It's just human communication, and in that human communication, you're becoming aware of your existence in deeper ways. So there's at times where the student and teacher, their eyes even become one, and it's a level of acknowledging your reality where your search dissolves into itself. And so it's, again, a very pure experience. And so guys, I guess what you can take away from this talk about the Purelands, and also there's actually something I want to say, which I forgot to mention. It seems that when I looked up the concept of a Pureland, there was a person who, it's as if, I think, this is my interpretation of it, of course, I could be wrong here, but it was as if the person who made the Purelands was this being, this human being that, in a sense, in his humanity, was so interested and excited in the concept of making a dimension of purity. So it's as if, like, you see, we have different creators. We have some people who come in this reality and they're supposed to be like Da Vinci, who are supposed to make those designs and do art. And there's some people here who are actually, they just have a physical reference point, but them as a being, they're here to create non-dimensional platforms. What that means, in many of my talks, my voice creates imagery in which then your life can give life to for you. However, there are preparatory stages where, like, you see, if you're still in a hierarchical system where there are intermediaries, where you're aware, like, how just like you, the ant is lesser than you, you're also lesser to something else. And so the fact that there's communication between these different dimensions, and how, for example, you can gently, observe the beauty of a butterfly landing on your shoulder or your forehead, or, how man can get his greatest idea out of nowhere. It's very inspiring. It's as if, like, suddenly man goes into the experience of a greater whole. It's as if man becomes then the butterfly that sits on a greater shoulder of existential awareness. And so you will see, it's as if that person who was interested by the concept of Purelands was this being that came here to just get the imagery. Like, that being probably didn't need a lot of imagery to do its work. It pretty much just saw one dualistic relationship, and it's as if its life purpose was complete. It's like, all right, I know, and what that really was, this is of course my interpretation, was that this being chose to create himself as a dimension. What that means is that, for example, when I'm talking to you, I talk about collective consciousness, but that for some time it's not going to be real to humanity. It's actually going to be real to perhaps the children of my children's children might just be like, wait a minute, like that's how close that mankind, I think, will get. But regardless, every being is their own requirement and is, in a sense, their own sense of being here. You're here for reasons beyond reason. The gentleness of life is always communicating your path. And if you give yourself gentleness, stress, depression, and all that nonsense, which is just the waste of concept you're having in your mind, can fade. And it's as if that moment where you see that when you were trying to prove a point, when 5 other people were talking at the same time to prove their points, the wisest man was the one who stopped talking. And so gentleness will kind of become like this way where you wake up and you're just more calm because you're more observant of life, And so when you're more observant, it's as if like you become gentler to look at it more deeply. It's like that moment where you were focusing to see, was the Mona Lisa really smiling or not? You know, it's very crucial to be an authentic explorer of your experience and to be really clear on what here and now means to you beyond ideology. Just what does it mean for you as a being? What does it mean? And you will see that for the experiencer, that was that person who was looking to make this dimension called the Purelands, literally a dimension of purity, was simply looking at it perhaps as if that in the hierarchy he saw that was the truth. It's as if he came into this reality and he's like, okay, it's as if the higher dimensions are placed this way because this is the only way I can receive it for now, right? But when I look at it, I see that because I've acknowledged the normal, I am now a phenomena beyond it. It's like the minute you understand man's simplest ideas, you have just given yourself permission to move into its complexity. It's like that moment where I was talking about something, you're like, what's this guy talking about? Oh my God, it's like, what is it? It's so complex, I don't understand it. Then suddenly I told you I'm just talking about an apple, man. And you're like, whoa, it was that simple, you know? Because science does not need to be a lot of books that you need to take home from the library. It can be as simple as you closing your eyes and an awareness to your life, just intuitively walking. There's been infinite times, I can't say infinite, but there's been many times where I've walked up to a library, a bookshelf, and randomly it's as if like a part, as if this impulse, as if this sense of huge excitement, intuition was telling me this exact book. It's as if a part of me already knew the book regardless of my conscious registration, which actually is leading me into the design of concepts which I can tell man of how we are actually aware of ourselves before we take our steps. You know, like just like how when you walk in a park, you see a few steps ahead of you, your consciousness is aware of any life thing that happens to you, you know, before it happens in a sense, because you're giving yourself the funnel of duality, in which you're creating yourself as a moment that can spiral into many ways of its own self-conception. The greatest study of mankind is the study of a moment of being. If you study a moment of being, or what a moment of existence means, you will become wise in the light of your own knowing, not in the light of another man, or another thing, or another ideology or something, you know. It's as if that moment where you sit down to observe your own ideas and realize, wow, you're not someone that is lacking. You're actually someone who has but has never tried. It's as if like all those moments where you thought you had a problem, no, you didn't have a problem, you just did not express an answer. You chose to receive the moment without your engagement, without your contribution. You chose to sat down that moment when someone was being judged without equality. You know, it's very important that we care not for ourselves, but for others as well. We care for our moment. It's as if, I don't care if it's, you know, it's as if it's a wild animal, or if it's just a piece of trash, or if it's just, you know, a saint or a sinner. Whatever is in my moment of existence, as a compassionate life, I respect it. And what that means is, in the core, regardless of how much we as human beings judge each other, we all respect one another profoundly by the fact that we have come into form, by the fact that we have become emissaries in existence and of existence. When you open the door, you will find the freedom of reality. It is something that you just need to observe, and through self-awareness, self-remembrance, and self-reflection, discover within yourself. You will find Mr. Within, in the sense that your sense of who you are now, which is uncertain, will suddenly be aware of life in a way where it suddenly sees that it always also had the potential for uncertainty. And what that means is that my words are not teachings, they are just communications that are to be received by more self-aware beings. What that means is that we're not trying to change the world. You're walking in the transcendence of your world, and so your walk is your teacher. So how I walk in the park is simply my experience. I'm not a teacher, a guru, nothing. I'm just that blue jay on the branch. I'm just that being who is walking, who is just living his life beyond labels, but is giving the allowance for all labels to chaotically be torn apart in their ordered designs. Because we need the awareness of the artist that found new colors. And our generation, our children, that is their value. It's the colors of their findings and how their search was the greatest moment of mankind. Because the Purelands are always, is always here. Much blessings and namaste.